So, I've been thinking a little bit about evidence. In particular, the evidence that Cy ten Bruggencate says would not convince an atheist to convert to Christianity. He specifically says that he does not discuss evidence with an unbeliever. He will give evidence if the person asking for the evidence is not challenging the evidence. But if someone is challenging the evidence, then he won't discuss evidence. Now, I think this is quite dishonest, and I'm going to talk a little bit about dishonesty at the end of this video. But I think there's obviously reasons why Cy will not discuss evidence with non-believers. Now, I think this falls into several categories, and it might even, they may even blend together, and there may be some things I haven't thought of before. But the first, I think, is that it's a projection. They say that we will not be convinced by evidence, and he gives his little anecdotes of why about the guy who thought he was dead. But it's a clear projection, because there's many scientific theories that we have things that have been discovered that they discount, and they discount them only because of Scripture, and no amount of evidence will convince them otherwise. And I had my eyes really opened up by the whole geocentrism debate with Fernie Boy 100 as to the depths that they will go to avoid or to discount evidence and hold on to their presuppositions, whether it's geocentrism versus heliocentrism, whether it's the theory of evolution, the Big Bang, global warming, whatever it is. And they're clearly projecting that onto us, that no amount of evidence would change their minds, and so it seems natural to them that we would be the same. Of course, that's not the case. Most rational thinkers, most atheists, we are swayed by evidence. And so even if a person were to say, not believe in anthropogenic global warming, for instance, there is a certain amount of evidence that would bring a rational thinker to say, oh, okay, I accept that premise now. And, as I've said in one of my last videos, the same is true with God. There is a certain amount of evidence that would lead me to say, okay, I accept this now. It would have to be substantial, of course, because it's a huge claim, but I would accept it. I've said prior, you'd have to be an idiot not to, right? If I saw enough evidence that proved God, well, I would have to accept it, because I'm not real interested in eternity in hell, right? So I think the first reason that they won't give evidence and say that we would never accept it anyway is projection. But of course, this isn't the real reason. I mean, that's maybe a subroutine going on, but I think the real reason is the evidence is difficult for them, because the evidence that they have doesn't comport with reality. And so the only way they can make it comport with reality is they've got to do all this Gumby bending and swoop, sort of the Matrix style, dodging of the bullets, of evidence. This is allegory, and this is to be taken literally, and this you have to understand in context, and you're not understanding the language. It's always, whenever there's a piece of evidence in the Bible that doesn't comport with reality, there's always extenuating circumstances. There's tons of special pleading involved, and there's always some reason why you are misinterpreting it. And so they've got to look at the Bible, the evidence, with their God glasses on. And they're willing to do that. But we're not. And so it's very difficult for them to talk evidence with someone who isn't buying the tale, lock, stock, and barrel, because we're just not willing to accept all this dancing around that they do with their own evidence. And I mean, let's face it, a lot of it's very, very difficult. I mean, if you're going to take the Bible literally and talk about an earth that doesn't move, or some of these other things, yeah, I wouldn't want to have to try and explain that to somebody either. That's tough stuff. So at any rate, you know, like I say, I think it's silliness to say that we're not going to discuss evidence, and they came up with the presuppositional apologetic as a way around that, and it really is, to me, evidence of a dying apologetic when you have to trash the evidential arguments because they're so untenable and in favor of this basically assertion with a pointy finger, and lots of talk about doing it with meekness and love and respect when it's nothing of the sort. You know, guy's arrogant, right? One last thing for tonight, dishonesty. I find it interesting. I got into a little bit of a debate or a discussion with John Lawn again on my channel about dishonesty, because I told him that if he's going to declare that he's converted people who have not made any kind of admission that they have accepted Jesus Christ, that I'm going to block him, and I'm going to do it temporarily. I'm not going to block him permanently, but I'm going to give him a timeout. Ironically, I don't believe in timeouts for kids, but I believe in timeouts for adults. Anyway, I told him I would do that because I think it's dishonest. And he said, well, are you going to block atheists who are calling me names on your channel? And I said, no, I'm not going. I will only block for three things: threats, harassment, or dishonesty. Well, whose standard are you going to use for honesty? He says, of course. It's always about whose standard, right? I mean, to me, dishonesty, there is a definition, right? And I said, well, I'm going to use, you know, my channel, my standards. If you don't like it, I'm sure you can find the door. But I said, really, it's not that difficult, right? There's a definition of dishonesty. It's speaking forth things that don't comport with reality. And he came back with some kind of weird retort. And I finally just gave up talking to him because he's being pedantic and he knows darn well. I think what I said to him was, it is bearing false witness to say that you've witnessed a conversion that hasn't taken place. Of course, referring to his activities on the comments thread. And again, I had to just bail on it. But I really find a lot of dishonest conduct amongst these theists. I watched a Karen S. video tonight where she has a little clip of Cy ten Bruggencate talking about debating veridical cadence and the realistic nihilist, I think. And he's in there, he's saying, I'm not really interested, these guys have been chasing me for a while, and I'm not really interested in debating them, but if you could go ahead and set that up. Well, here's how this works, Cy. If you're not really interested in debating someone, you just don't debate them, right? I've said myself, I've gone on record and said I have no interest in debating presuppositional apologetics, and I don't really even encourage anyone else to do that. I'll watch it. I mean, I find it interesting and entertaining, but I don't think it serves any real good purpose. So you're not going to see me debating Cy ten Bruggencate or Eric Hovind or any other. I mean, that's just how that works. I think it's dishonest. Now, it might not be a blatant lie, but there's dishonesty there to say, I'm not really interested in debating these people, but then to go ahead and do it. Because there's some kind of a motive going on. There's some kind of a subroutine in there of making yourself seem disinterested. Baloney. If you're disinterested, you don't do it. And there's many other things. I mean, I could go on and on and on about the dishonesty that I see. The Bible thumping wingnut commented on my channel. First comment that he made on there was, "Whoa, you've devoted your whole channel to the presuppositional apologetic." And I came back and I said, well, not exactly. I'm just getting started. There's going to be other things on there as well. And he comes back and he says, I've counted 21 of 22 videos, and they all have to do with the presuppositional apologetic except one that doesn't have a title. Can I presuppose that that one's about the presuppositional apologetic also? And I said, well, no, you may not. Because it's not. And actually, if you go through, you'll find I've got my Star Trail video on there. I'd had one or two of my Fernie Boy 100 geocentric videos on there. I'd had one about relationship valuation. So no. And can you not take my word for it that when you ask me if I dedicated my channel, if I tell you no, what we're talking about, dedication is intent. You ask me my intent, I tell you my intent, and then you question it, and then some dishonesty sneaks through there. I counted these videos, etc., etc. So I don't understand what that's about, but I don't know if it's lying in the name of Jesus, if that's okay. I don't know, but I think it's interesting from the camp that says they have a objective standard for honesty and truth, and that we can't account for the same things. Curious, isn't it? Have a good evening. I forgot a couple of things. You won't get rid of me quite that easily. One thing, I've noticed there's some instability in my videos, and I think what's causing it, actually, I use a YouTube capture app for the iPhone, and I really like the app. It's very convenient for me. It makes it easy for me to upload videos. Ironically, I think that there's a stability control in the app that's causing the problem. When I downloaded the app, there was a setting there for stability control, and I selected it. And I think that's what's happening, is because I have the phone mounted on a stable surface, when I move around, it sees that as instability that needs to be corrected, and it does its thing. I've gone into the settings and tried to change that, and I haven't been able to do so. So I think I'm going to have to delete the app and start over again, and I just haven't wanted to do that because I've got a couple of videos that I need to deal with first. So in the meantime, please bear with me. Maybe hold on to something while watching my videos so you don't fall over. The other thing I wanted to mention is Veridical Cadence did an excellent video on evidence, and I encourage you to watch it. I'll put a link below. Keep in mind, I upload my videos at night while I'm asleep, so any links that I'm going to add, I add the following morning, so they might not be there right when you watch this. But it's an excellent video, and he talks about evidence and specifically using your brain. You know, as in, what kind of a God would give you a brain and then say, you know, go ahead and employ it in all your endeavors except this one, right? Or more importantly, to say, you're going to have all this evidence come your way, but just, you know, disregard it under punishment of eternal torment. You know, we've been given this great computer and then told, you know, just don't compute anything, right? I mean, it's this is tyrannical. You know, I don't know. I'm a parent, right? And one of the greatest joys I've had is watching my child become her own individual and using her intellect along the way. And I just can't imagine that a creator God would be any different. They want a bunch of you know, robots. I'm not sure, but certainly would be very, very. This is a trickster God type of a thing to do. To say that, you know, that would be like having your child and setting them up for failure constantly, right? Setting up these little tricks for them and then watching them fail. If you set up the tricks, you're the one responsible for that. You know, you set up a natural world that's full of evidence and then say, don't compute any of that. So I really encourage you to watch Veridical Cadence video. He's far more eloquent than I, and he really drives the point home very, very well, and in a much shorter time than I too. It's only like a 5 or 6 minute video. So that's all for tonight. Hope everyone has a good weekend. Thanks for watching.